The spring thaw has begun, which means that I must bring the snowmobile camper back to the cabin site today or risk not being able to bring it back at all. This year's expedition was a great opportunity to put my little camper to the test. I already have a list of improvements in mind for it. However, my plans for the camper must wait until next winter. As the snow begins to clear, I can finally turn my attention back to the log cabin build. I believe this is going to be a big year for the cabin, and I can't wait to get started. At the beginning of this winter, my dad and I put in a winter bridge over a small creek. I know that some viewers were wondering why we even bothered to build over such a small obstacle. Well, we didn't build the bridge as much for the current conditions then as we did for the future end of winter now. What started as a small creek in the beginning of winter had turned into a larger stream by the end of it. Without the bridge, the sled might have gotten bogged down and stuck in the soft and uneven ground that the stream created. Here's where the camper will rest until next year. In the meantime, it will make for a great mini storage shed while I work on the cabin. I needed to prop the camper off the ground, but there was some tinkering I needed to do with the tractor first. It felt good to be back on the Massey again. On my way to the cabin site, I crossed back over the winter bridge. For something that we just threw together in under an hour, it sure held its own. Before I can begin work on the cabin, there are a few things that I must take care of, starting with the installation of a hydraulic top link on the tractor. Last year, I used a boom pole to lift and move cedar logs around. Since we were used to moving logs by hand up until that point, we found the boom pole to be an invaluable tool. However, it did have its limitations. The 3-point hitch has a small range, and therefore can only lift the pole about 3 feet at a time. The manual top link could be adjusted to increase the boom pole's range, but only when it wasn't holding anything.
much. More? That's good.
So if we wanted to lift a log more than 3 feet, we had to raise it onto a higher surface, slack the load, readjust the top link, and lift the log again. This was tricky to do and wasted a lot of time. To solve the problem, I installed a hydraulic kit on the tractor with 2 rear remotes, so that I could finally switch out the manual top link for a hydraulic one.
Okay, that one went.
You want higher?
Yeah. Back a little. There we are.
With the flick of a lever, the boom pole went from having a range of 3 feet to a range of 7 feet. The hydraulic piston can now do in seconds what it took me minutes to do by hand. And the best part of all is that I can articulate the boom under load, which is something I couldn't do before. To help the Massey with lifting and hauling heavier loads, I added 1,400 pounds of extra weight to the tractor. I accomplished this by filling the rear wheels with 1,200 pounds of calcium and bolting 200 pounds of weights to the front tires. My little tractor, which once weighed 3,500 pounds, now weighs in at just under 5,000 pounds. The added weight will help keep the front tires from rising from the ground when lifting heavy logs, and increase traction when pulling them around. The first job I did with my upgraded top link was to lift the snowmobile camper onto a couple logs for summer.
Shift over the summer anyway, after the crossings out.
With the hydraulic system working well and the camper set up for summer, we are almost ready to begin work on the cabin again. All I have to do now is retrieve a dead elm I brought down this winter and do some spring cleaning at the build site. Once those jobs are taken care of, we will finally be able to begin on the cabin. But those jobs will have to wait for another episode. Until next time, my friends.